The universe rarely changes your direction gently. When it wants to move you somewhere new, it usually starts by shaking what you're standing on. And this is where most people get confused. They interpret disruption as punishment, bad luck, or failure, when in reality, disruption is often proof that redirection is already underway. Think about how many major turning points in your life began with something falling apart. A job you suddenly lost. A relationship that ended without closure. A plan that collapsed right when you thought everything was finally stable. In those moments, it didn't feel like guidance. It felt like betrayal. Like the universe pulled the ground from under your feet with no warning. But looking back, many people realize something uncomfortable yet undeniable. Staying where they were would have slowly destroyed them. The universe doesn't disrupt what's aligned. It disrupts what you've outgrown but refuse to leave. Here's the pattern most people miss. When you ignore subtle signals, restlessness, dissatisfaction, lack of meaning, the universe escalates. First, it whispers. You feel bored, uninspired, or emotionally disconnected. Then it nudges. Small inconveniences, repeated frustrations, delays. If you still don't move, the universe stops being polite. It disrupts. It breaks routines. It removes people. It collapses structures you depended on. Not to harm you, but to force movement. Imagine someone who stays in a job that drains them every day. They feel it in their body. Sunday anxiety. Constant fatigue. A quiet dread every morning. But they stay because it's safe. Predictable. Logical. The universe tries subtle redirection, missed promotions, lack of fulfillment, a growing sense of emptiness. When those signals are ignored, disruption arrives. Layoffs. Company restructuring. A sudden firing. And it feels unfair. Until months later, when that person realizes they would never have left on their own. Comfort had become a cage. Disruption is often the universe doing what your courage couldn't. This is why moments of collapse feel so personal. Because they touch identity. Who you thought you were. Who you thought you were becoming. When those structures break, it feels like losing yourself. But in truth, you're losing a version of yourself that was built to survive, not to thrive. And here's something important. Redirection rarely looks better at first. It looks uncertain. Messy. Unplanned. The universe doesn't replace the old path immediately. It clears space first. That empty space is what scares people. The gap between what was and what's coming. Humans hate gaps. We rush to fill them. But the universe uses gaps to reset trajectory. If you're in a season where things feel unstable, where plans are dissolving instead of forming, pause before labeling it as failure. Ask a different question. What is being removed because it can't come with me? That question alone can shift how you experience disruption. This is a good moment to ground this reflection. If this perspective resonates with you, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps keep this kind of content alive and reaching people who might be in the middle of a disruption right now, wondering what it all means. There's proof of this pattern everywhere, once you know how to see it. People meet life-changing partners only after painful breakups. They discover purpose after burnout. They find clarity after confusion strips away false certainty. The universe doesn't redirect through comfort, it redirects through contrast, and the deeper truth is this: disruption is rarely random. It's targeted. It hits the exact area where you've been resisting growth. That's why it feels so specific, so personal, so timed. When disruption arrives, it almost always feels like chaos. But chaos is just order we don't recognize yet. The universe doesn't tear things apart carelessly, it dismantles with precision. What looks like everything going wrong at once is often multiple misaligned pieces being removed simultaneously, because keeping even one of them would pull you back to the old path. One of the clearest proofs of this shows up in timing. Notice how disruptions tend to happen when you're at a crossroads internally. Not when everything feels aligned, but when you're already questioning, doubting, or feeling stuck. You may not have admitted it out loud, but something inside you was already asking for change. The universe simply responded faster and more decisively than you expected. Think about people who experience a sudden breakup that feels completely unexpected. They'll say, there were no signs. But when they're honest, with time and distance, they realize the signs were there. Emotional distance. Conversations that felt hollow. Growth happening in different directions. The relationship wasn't ending randomly, it was ending because it could no longer support who one or both people were becoming. The universe didn't destroy love, it removed an outdated container for it. The same applies to friendships, identities, goals, even dreams. Some dreams don't fail because they were wrong. They fail because they were stepping stones, not destinations. And the universe will not let you mistake a stepping stone for a place to settle. This is where resistance creates suffering. The more tightly you cling to what's being removed, the more painful the disruption feels. Not because the universe is cruel, but because you're trying to stay aligned with something that's already expired. Like holding onto a doorframe while the building is being demolished. The pain isn't from the demolition, it's from refusing to let go. Here's an example that hits close for many people: identity disruption. You work years to become the responsible one, the achiever, the strong one, the reliable one. Then suddenly, life strips you of the role that defined you. You fail. You slow down. You lose momentum. And it feels like losing your worth. But what's actually happening is deeper. The universe is separating who you are from what you do. Because as long as your identity is tied to a role, you're fragile. Redirection often begins by dissolving false identities so something more authentic can emerge. This is also why redirection feels lonely. During disruption, old connections fall away before new ones arrive. Old certainty disappears before new clarity forms. You're left in a quiet in-between space. And this is the moment most people misinterpret as abandonment. They say, nothing is working, when in fact something very specific is working. Detachment. The universe needs you unattached enough to move you. If everything remained comfortable, familiar, and validated, you would never risk the new path. Disruption reduces your options so alignment becomes the only direction left. It's not forcing you into something wrong, it's removing every excuse to stay somewhere wrong. If you're finding meaning in this and it's helping you reframe something difficult in your life, this is a good moment to pause and support the channel. Leave a like and subscribe. It allows these ideas to reach people who are still blaming themselves for disruptions that were never failures to begin with. Another proof lies in what happens after disruption, once you stop fighting it. Small openings appear. Conversations. Ideas. Opportunities that would never have fit into your old schedule, old identity, or old mindset. At first, they seem insignificant. But they carry a different energy. Lighter. More honest. More aligned. Redirection doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives quietly, once there's space to receive it, and that space only exists because something else was removed. Disruption is not the end of the story. It's the cut between chapters. Necessary. Precise. Uncomfortable. And deeply intelligent. The final proof that the universe disrupts before it redirects is not found in what you lose, but in what you become once you stop resisting the process. When the dust settles, when the emotional charge fades, you realize something quietly powerful: you're no longer who you were before the disruption. And that change didn't come from motivation or planning. It came from necessity. Redirection reshapes you before it reshapes your life. After a major disruption, people often say, "I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone." And yet, in the same breath, they'll admit, "I wouldn't go back either." That contradiction is telling. It means the pain had purpose. It stripped away illusions, forced honesty, and demanded growth that comfort never would have required. Look at how people speak after surviving their hardest seasons. They're clearer. Calmer. Less impressed by surface-level success. Less afraid of uncertainty. Disruption trains discernment. You stop chasing what looks good and start choosing what feels right. You stop needing everything to make sense immediately. You trust timing more, not because life got easier, but because you learned that endings are often instructions in disguise. Another undeniable proof appears in hindsight: alignment. Things begin to connect backward. You realize why that door had to close. Why that version of you couldn't continue. Why that loss made space for a capacity you didn't have before, or emotional depth, resilience, self-trust. Redirection doesn't just move you geographically or professionally. It recalibrates your nervous system. It teaches you how to sit in uncertainty without collapsing. That skill alone changes everything, and notice this: once you've been redirected by the universe a few times, fear loses its authority. You still feel it, but you don't obey it. You've seen how worst-case scenarios often become turning points. You've learned that breakdowns can be breakthroughs wearing uncomfortable disguises. That knowledge can't be taken from you. This is why some people grow softer after disruption, while others grow bitter. The difference isn't what happened, it's whether they interpreted disruption as rejection or redirection. When you see yourself as abandoned, you contract. When you see yourself as being repositioned, you expand. There's a quiet confidence that comes from realizing this: the universe doesn't waste your suffering. It repurposes it. Every ending carries information. Every collapse reveals misalignment. Every disruption is feedback, not about your worth, but about direction. So if you're in a season where nothing feels stable, where plans keep unraveling, where the future looks foggy instead of promising, pause before judging it. You may be standing in the exact moment before redirection becomes visible. The universe clears paths the same way nature does, by removing what no longer belongs. If this message has helped you reinterpret a difficult chapter in your life, take a moment to subscribe and leave a like. It supports the channel and helps this perspective reach others who may be in the middle of a disruption and blaming themselves for it. Remember this going forward: alignment often feels like peace after chaos, not before it. The universe doesn't guide you away from what's easy, it guides you away from what's limiting. And sometimes, the only way forward is through something breaking first. Trust the timing, trust what's being removed, and trust that redirection is already in motion, even if you can't see the road yet, because the universe doesn't disrupt randomly. It disrupts intentionally.